Hello everybody, welcome back once again to the Lost Odyssey walkthrough. So we are out on the ocean. I just spent a bunch of time at the Nimara Atoll. I need to turn this down, this is way too loud. Okay. I actually plan on coming back in a bit, but I want to go to this next area here really quickly. We can get some new, probably like equipment and some new spells. So I want to do that, or at least one new spell. I don't know about how many, but it looks like we need to head up here. Hopefully this is correct. Yeah, this looks like where we need to be. There we are.
Land at last! Dry land, no more worrying about sinking on that stupid ship. Ow! Hey, what the hell was that for?
The slant nose will never sink. Not with the captain's engine on board.
You think you're so cool now that you're a pirate? Well, I'm gonna teach you a thing or two about the pirate code.
And what code would that be?
What code? Well, that would be a secret pirate code that we would do if we had the time.
Head.
Hey, Grandpa! Wow, you have Cook is such a and what a kick! Boy, she's strong. That Cook. Ha ha.
I have no idea what you just said.
Well, what I'm saying is that Cook is as cute as a button. She's just, oh, you must be proud.
Lion creep. Cook, it hurts when you get kicked, you know? But he insulted the captain. Isn't that right, Captain? Captain?
A dream has been revealed. Oh, this seems like this is going to be a Seth dream. Oh, wondrous... Wait, hang on. Okay, yeah. Oh, there's no title to this one, I guess. That seems weird. Okay, whatever. Alright, anyways. Oh, wondrous beast. Anera, proud descendant of the white-winged clan. You alone were my irreplaceable companion. Would it anger you to hear me call us two of a kind? We were not, in fact, a perfect combination, you and I. Sorry, were we not, in fact, a perfect combination, you and I? Bound together by a single thread, that gossamer thread we know as loneliness. Anera, I owe my life to you. Not, of course, that you saved my life in the ordinary sense of the word. Mine is not a life that can be lost under any circumstances. It is an irrevocable burden. I will not die, I cannot die, and therefore my life was not for you to save. Oh, Anira, what you saved, I now see, was not my life, but my heart. Back then, long centuries ago, I was a pirate, the only woman pirate on the open seas. Seth Ballamore, that name was known to all who plied the sea. Some spoke my name in fear and trembling, while others have voiced it with deepest admiration. Some even called me the righteous buccaneer, nor were they far wrong, I'd say. The pirate ships I commanded had rules that were clear and strict. We targeted only one kind of vessel, those opulent passenger ships the wealthy boarded for pleasure cruises. We would put a bit of a scare into the passengers, of course, maybe rough them up a little, but killing was strictly forbidden. All we did was squeeze a few drops of treasure out of the purses of those who had more money than they knew what to do with. We traded our booty for cash with shadowy dealers and the money we shared in the world's dens of poverty. I would cringe at being called a champion of justice, but we prided ourselves on being far more than villains. I became a pirate for one simple reason. I hated the law, and I hated even those who flaunted the law for their own self-aggrandizement. In a word, I wanted a life of freedom. Whenever I stood at the prow of a pirate ship slicing its way through the waves, and I viewed the vast ocean stretched out beneath the clear blue sky, I enveloped in the joy of having taken limitless freedom in my own two hands. True, I need not traffic in the fear of death and aging, known to all who count as human, and because I will neither age nor die, infinite time means for me infinite freedom. Not bad, wouldn't you say? I would spy the ship that would be our day's quarry. I was always the first to board it, springing lightly onto their deck with a shout, "I am Seth Balmore. Now be good and hand over your money and valuables." Then, taking the booty we had snatched, my men and I would raise a cry of victory and leap back into our ship. I was absolutely free. Nothing stood in my way. Eternal life overflowing with freedom. Not bad, wouldn't you say? Righteous buccaneer? What kind of fancy pants nonsense is that? How about pirate bitch? Of course, one always hears such jealous ravings in all walks of life, but especially so in the thuggish world of pirates. Needless to say, I knew I had many enemies. Even a child would realize that being called a righteous buccaneer could only increase the number who hated me among such raping and pillaging brigands as pirates of the sea. But I didn't care about that. I could be stabbed with a knife or blasted with a cannon, and still I would not die. Immortal Seth, they called me, and it was literally true, not just a figure of speech. I won't get in your way, I told the other pirates, but I won't let you get in mine either. I was afraid of nothing and no one. I lived the way I wanted to live and wouldn't or shouldn't have let anyone interfere with me. I went wrong only once, but that was all it took. In a moment of carelessness, I let them capture me. Of course, that alone was nothing for me to be afraid of. As I keep mentioning, I can never age or die. It would have done them no good to try killing me, and they knew it. The most they could do would be to rough me up a little and threaten to make it worse for me next time. They had to do something to show their men how tough they were. They couldn't just let me horn in on the pirate game and pretend it never happened. "So," I said, "hurry up with the torture, will you? I haven't got all day." We were in a cave on a desert island. I was in handcuffs and leg irons and surrounded by half a dozen huge men, all well-known pirate captains. One of them was holding a long, thick chain. I get sick to my stomach just looking at your sweaty faces. Come on, hurry up and beat me with the chain. Would you rather strangle me? Whichever you choose, hurry and get it over with. The men laughed out loud. "Hurry and get it over with," said the leader. "Too bad for you, Seth, but this punishment is not the kind that can be hurried. I'm just sorry we can't stay with you to the end." "Yeah," chimed in the other man. "Unlike a monster like you, we humans don't have all the time in the world. Okay, men, let's make it fast, the way the lady wants." Licking his lips, the man with the chain approached me, and two others grabbed my arms from the sides. They were not going to use the chain as an instrument of torture, but to rob me of my liberty. They chained me to a gigantic boulder in the cave. They were laughing so hard they could hardly contain themselves. "Just what you need, eh, Seth? It's the end of the road for you. We can't shoot you, we can't stab you to death, so we'll just lock you up. We'll never come back to this island again, and even a half-baked pirate like you knows this place is not on any sea lanes, no fishing boats even, and right now your men have gone off looking for the wrong island. We're the only ones who know we brought you here. Not even our crews know that we are here. Nobody's coming to save you, that's for sure. You'll be in here forever. Can't move a muscle, and you can't even die, all by yourself, for the rest of eternity." With that, the man walked out of the cave, leaving me there with a single lantern. "Cowards!" I screamed. "Don't run off like that. Don't do this to me." But But the only response was the hollow echo of my own voice in the cave. The lantern the men left behind was not meant as a kindness, but rather the opposite. It was a prop in their little drama. When it finally ran out of oil and went dark, it would impress on me the weight of eternal solitude. As long as the lamp kept glowing, I was filled with rage for the men, but when the oil was running low and the flame began to flicker, a deep anxiety assaulted me. Unable to move, I stared blankly at the flame. Eternity. This world has no such thing, or perhaps it should not have, solitude. I was always alone, or more precisely, I always ended up alone. It was my destiny. I could be surrounded by companions whose feelings matched my own perfectly. I could share the deepest love with one another, but in the end, I would always have to lose them. Do you know what it feels like to see countless others to come to death while you yourself are on the road of endless life? Ah, but in your case, Anira, you do have some idea. As I watched, the lamp in the cave went out. A world of darkness spread out before me, and there I was, alone. No more would I taste the sorrow of parting, but neither would I be able to taste the joy of meeting eternally without end, alone. I did not try shouting. People shout and scream for one reason only, because they want someone to hear them, because they believe there is someone somewhere who will hear their cries. I did, however, shed tears, which is not to say I wept. There is no way that the immortal woman pirate Seth Balmore would ever break down and cry. A tiny tremor went through the darkness. That is all it was. And then I noticed, oh, tears are coming out of me. Really. That is all it was. The hours passed, or perhaps it was days. In the darkness, I lost track of the flow of time. There was something else I lost track of. If all there was left for me to do was to stay by myself, struggling against eternal solitude, incapable of rotting away, then what was the purpose of my living in the world? Perhaps the men who trapped me here had been right, unable either to age or die. Perhaps I was some kind of monster. Then why was such a monster living in this world? What was I supposed to do here? I did not know the answer to that. I would never know the answer to the end of my never-ending life. I felt frustration, sorrow, but above all, fear. Eternity was frightening to me. Solitude was frightening to me. I might have been trembling, or, without even the energy for that, I might have been utterly drained. Whatever it was that I was feeling when it happened, Anira, this is when you first appeared before me. A tiny burst of light softened the darkness, and from the light, almost before I could wonder what it was, there came a voice. Are you too trapped in the prison of solitude? Who is that? In the light, a flash of white wings. Then, with a sudden increase in size and brightness, the light seared my eyes. Accustomed to total darkness, my eyes could not stand the glare, and for an instant they could not see anything at all. Grimacing, I clamped my eyes shut before daring to open them little by little. There before me hovered a pure white, glowing beast. Its white wings were breathtakingly beautiful. How beautiful you were, Anira. But yours was not a florid beauty. No, it was subtly different. Your beauty wore a cloak of loneliness. I am like you said, and when I cocked my head to look at you with puzzlement, you continued. I've been looking for someone like you for a very long time. You spoke slowly, majestically. Oh, immortal woman pirate, you and I share a single destiny. You knew who I was. Together let us escape from this solitude and make our way together, you said, your eyes locked on mine. Escape from this solitude. The words continued ringing in my ears, but I did not know who you were. I could not even be sure what you were, nor could I leap joyfully at the invitation of one I could not tell as friend or foe. Who are you? I asked. I am Anira of the White-Winged Clan. White-Winged Clan? I had heard the name before. The White-Winged Clan were said to be wondrous beasts that had become extinct in the distant past. I have heard that the White-Winged Clan died out long ago. I am the last of the bloodline, the only survivor? Indeed, as I said, the last. Which is why you speak of solitude? At that point, almost before I knew it, a weak, almost self-mocking smile crept over my face. I felt myself lowering my guard as I spoke to you. My chains, however, were digging even deeper into my flesh and shackling my heart as well. You used the phrase prison of solitude before. It's true. This is a prison. Being alone for eternity is a prison without bars. You nodded at these words of mine, Anera, in silence, but then you said, I was in a prison too, until just now. I'm sure it's true. To be the only living survivor, I have spent far too long a time alone. I know what you mean. In the legend, members of the White-Winged clan are thought to live 1,000 years, but even if you were to live on for several centuries as sole survivor, you could never meet a female member of the clan of the White Wing and hope to make children with her. The clan will never rise again. The sole survivor must live out the remainder of his days alone. In order to conquer this unbearable loneliness, you said, I would need someone to make her way with me. Then you looked hard at me and said, Oh, pirate woman, are you not of the same mind? I nodded in agreement. But then I made a point of smiling and said as casually as I could, In other words, you're lonely. Your beautiful face softened and you said with some embarrassment, I wonder. According to the legend, as I have heard it, the clan of the White Wing are proud and love their solitude. This only increased your embarrassment and you said, Solitude has its limits. That did it. I decided to trust you then and there. Well, if that's how you feel, you should come right out and say it. I want company. Company? All right, a companion. A companion? Exactly, so it's decided. I'll team up with you. That ended all hesitation. Just as you saw in me one to make your way together with, I put my full trust in you. Let's go wild on the high seas, I cried. Isn't that what make our way together means? You mean that I should become a pirate? You don't like the idea? You paused for the space of one breath and chuckled softly. I've always wanted to give it a try. No sooner were the words out of your mouth than you leapt at me. With one bite you cut through the thick chain that held me down. O wondrous beast Anera, proud descendant of the White-Winged clan. This was how you and I first met. In the 900 years since then, we raged over the open sea more wildly than I ever had before. When I stood at the prow of our pirate ship in search of prey, you were always there beside me. We became irreplaceable partners, friends, companions, family. End. Okay, so I guess that was the story of Seth meeting Anera.
Remembered some things from a long time ago. You mean when you were a pirate? And remembering made you cry?
I've always been a pirate. I was crying because of something that happened that I regret.
Sad. All right, let's see. What's our time looking like? Okay, we got about 10 minutes. Let's head to Tosca. Mountain Village, Tosca. Oh boy. What?
Look, it's Kyle! Hey, everybody! Kyle's back! It's good to see you again, Kyle. But you haven't changed a bit.
Huh. Okay. Kime, don't tell me you're leaving already. It's been so long since your last visit. Don't go just yet. Oh, I don't think we'll be going just yet, buddy. Ah, Kime, nice to have you here. Things haven't changed a bit around here, don't you think? Come climb that house on the cliffside of the northern cape where you and Sarah lived. It's still there, you know. Oh boy, interesting. Oh hey, Kaim, you're Kaim, right? My grandfather told me all about you. He gave this to me as a keepsake. It's really valuable to us, but it's what you use to protect our village, right? So here, Kaim, I want you to return it to you. Magic-powered locator level 1. Hey, Kaim, try it out now. I've hidden a treasure somewhere inside the village. See if you can find it. Here's a hint. It's hidden somewhere way up high. It's yours if you can find it. A treasure that's really high up lies in Tosca. Alright, yeah, let's view the treasure hunting tutorial. Using the magic-powered locator, you'll be able to look for treasures hidden all over the world, but to find treasures, you must obtain information on the whereabouts of those treasures. Once you get information on a treasure, it will appear on the treasure screen within the item menu. When you have your magic-powered locator and information, there will be a glowing point on the navigation screen when you enter the area in which the treasure is hidden. The treasure is hidden at the glowing point. Search for it in the nearby area. You can increase the output of the magic-powered locator, enabling you to find a lot more treasures than with level 1 locator. That makes sense. Okay, I think there's something with all these little Kilolon statues too. 500 G's. I've been in my fair share of battles, but one day, just as I was swinging my sword at someone, I suddenly thought, man, I wish I could have been a baker. I have no idea how a thought like that came to me, but after that battle, I quit the army. I've made my living baking bread ever since. Oh, looks like we've got a dream, yeah. Alright, Kaim recalls a memory that was locked deep within his heart. Dream has been revealed. Okay, let's dream a little dream. Alright, so I think this one is called The Hero. Yes, The Hero. Alright. The hero was home from the war. He had performed gallantly on the battlefield, advanced to the rank of general, and made a triumphal entry into the village of his birth. The villagers welcomed him with a festive celebration. The grown-ups were treated to drinks beginning in the afternoon, and the children received sweet confections. The cattle and sheep in the pastures that supported the villagers' livelihood, whether because they were excited by the unusual commotion or were welcoming the hero in their own way, sent especially shrill cries reverberating into the blue summer sky. General, you are the pride of our village. Obviously full of pride himself, the head of the village thrust out his chest as he delivered his congratulatory address and the welcoming ceremony. To think that the foremost hero in the army came from this tiny village is so incredibly exhilarating and gratifying. I'm sure our ancestors are overjoyed as well. The throng crammed into the village square burst forth with cheers and applause. According to the official figures released by the army the other day, General, you brought down at least 2,000 enemy soldiers with your own hand. A thunderous roar shook the square. Come to think of it, the population of this village is less than 1,000. This means, sir, that you managed to bury more than 2 of these villages' worth on your own. How fortunate for us that you were not one of the enemy. If by any chance there had been a warrior of your caliber on their side, we'd all be resting in the hilltop graveyard by now. A few of the women frowned momentarily at this remark, but the men, full of liquor, responded with an explosive laugh. Sitting stage center, the general lightly stroked his dignified beard. No one present knew that this was his habit whenever he was perplexed. When he left his village to join the army, he was just an ordinary soldier, a long way from growing a beard. General, you are truly the savior of our army, and indeed our entire nation. I understand you will be leaving for another battle tomorrow, but we all hope that you will thoroughly enjoy yourself on this rare visit to your birthplace. The village chief ended his greetings and withdrew to the wings, whereupon the village's number one entertainer bounded onto the stage in the most comical way he could imagine. "Dear General," he cried, running over to where the great man was seated and going down on his knees, "oh, hear my plea." The general looked at him uncertainly. "Is there any possibility that you would lend me the sword at your side, if only for a moment?" Perplexed though he was by all this, the general, impelled by the audience's applause and cheers, handed the man his tasseled and jewel-encrusted sword. The man bowed deeply as the sword entered his outstretched hands, and again he cried, My gratitude knows no bounds." Pretending to stagger under the weight of the sword, he came to the front edge of the stage and held the weapon aloft. "And now, ladies and gentlemen, I will reenact the event that raised our dear general's fame to the heights in a single bound, when he hacked 18 of the enemy into little teeny tiny bits." The audience cheered wildly, and the man, with exaggerated movements and commentary, swung the sword in a great arc. The audience knew exactly what he was doing. The general had not only made a name for himself for his strategic prowess, but was also widely acclaimed as a warrior on the battlefield. He did not rely solely on his weapons, but in the end leveled his opponents with his sheer physical strength. This, too, was a matter of the utmost pride for the villagers. "Here we go. 1 man down, 2 men down. Flip the sword back, 3 men down. 4th man slashed diagonally right through the shoulder. 5th man's head goes flying. Oof! Then 3 at once. 6th, 7th, and 8th man. What a bother! I'll just skewer you like this." The man thrust the sword through 3 imaginary opponents, and the crowd went wild. The general, too, broke into a smile and applauded. When he was through clapping, though, he stroked his beard again. "I'm sure you can understand how I felt at the time, sitting up there on that stage," the old general says to Kime before taking a sip of water from his leather pouch. His magnificent beard is completely white. So distant are the past events that he is recounting. Kime nods in silence, and the general continues, as if mulling over every word. "The more you know about war, the more you feel that way. I'm sure the villagers meant well. They just wanted to pay homage to their hometown hero. No, of course, they weren't being the least bit malicious. My village has the nicest people in this world, which is exactly why I found the whole thing so painful. I couldn't stand it after a while." Hacking 18 men to bits, the deeds of a hero are related in numbers. Surely the man who playfully swung the general's sword on stage that day could never have imagined the ones who lost their lives on the battlefield, the agonized expressions on their faces, the curse in their eyes as they stared into nothingness. But that's all right, too. People who lived peaceful lives don't have to know about such things. That's what people like us are here for, to keep their lives far away from the battlefields. Don't you agree? Thanks to us and our killing of enemies, the people we're supposed to protect don't have to know anything about the bloodiness of war. Unless you believe that, what's the point of people killing each other? Kime says nothing in reply. Without either affirming or negating the old general's words, he stares vaguely at the general's troops. "What'd you say your name is? Kime? I suppose you've killed more enemy soldiers than you can begin to count." "There's no way I could count them all." "I thought so. You have a flawless build, the kind that can only be tempered on the battlefield. Only a man who has survived one battle after another can carry himself the way you do with complete naturalness. How does a man like you find himself driving a horse cart over a mountain pass?" Kime is ready to leave without answering if the old man asks him such a question. But the general inquires no further into Kime's background. Instead, there is a sense of relief in the smile he bestows on the sight of Kime resting his horses at the pass. "I was 16 the first time I went into battle. After that, I just kept running from one fight to another until I made it all the way to general. At first, I remembered the faces of the men I crossed swords with and killed. Even if you don't try to remember them, they get carved into your memory. I had terrible nightmares, and try as I might, I could never seem to wash off the stench of the blood that splashed down my face and hands. That was a hallucination, of course, but it got so bad once that I spent a whole night in a river trying to wash myself off. The general paused a moment to think about this story, then went on. But after a while, you get used to it. You get used to fighting and killing over and over again, your body and your mind and your heart. You just get used to it. That's how people are, so I stopped having nightmares. I killed all the enemy soldiers I could lay my hands on, and I forgot every one of their faces. It's the same for you now, too, Kym, isn't it? Maybe so. It's like a curse. If you don't get used to it, your heart breaks. On the other hand, if you do get used to it, your heart probably ends up breaking someplace deeper down. The general casts a fond glance toward his resting troops. Then, slowly shifting his gaze far down to the foot of the mountain, he says, "So that's what it was like for me back then, when I returned to my birthplace in triumph." For the final event in the welcoming ceremony, several children mounted the stage, and now, in honor of our hero, the children will present to the general a floral wreath more marvelous than the greatest medal there ever was. The audience went wild again. When the children put the wreath on his neck, the general favored them with a warm smile, the first honest smile from the heart that he had managed since climbing onto the stage. And finally, as a special treat for the general who has been galloping from one battlefield to the next, far from his native place, the children's chosen representative will read his own original composition, spelling out the joys of the peaceful life of the village. With a look of grim intensity, a small boy, barely old enough to go to school, unfolded his composition and, gripping it in two hands, began to read aloud from it, straining to make himself heard. First, I'm going to write about one of the nicest things that happened to me. At my house, we have a pasture with lots of cows and sheep. One cow had a baby 2 days ago. I helped my daddy by stroking the cow's back with a handful of straw while she was having the baby. That makes the cow warm up, so it's easier for her to give birth. The baby was born just before the sun came up. It was a tiny baby, but it could already stand on its own legs. A baby! Wow! Going to take care of this baby until it gets big. Dear little calf, hurry and grow up, okay? The general had tears in his eyes. Now I'm going to write about one of the saddest things that happened to me. That was when my grandma got sick and died. She was such a nice grandma. I know her sickness made her feel bad, but she was always smiling when I was around. She let me hold her hand when she died. I watched her face the whole time because I knew I wouldn't be able to see her anymore, and I wanted to remember her even after I grow up. She just kept smiling and smiling for me right to the very end. That's why she's always smiling when I think of her. Are you looking down on me from the sky, Grandma? I will never forget you as long as I live. Tears were streaming down the general's face. When the ceremony ended, the general left his village and headed for the town where army headquarters were located. There, he wrote a long letter to the king, and he gave his sword to his most trusted lieutenant. The general had decided to retire. This was as big a surprise to me as it was to anybody, but when I heard that little boy's essay, it occurred to me, what makes us really human is to celebrate each life that comes into the world and mourn each life that is lost. I didn't need medals anymore. I didn't need the honor of being allowed into the presence of His Majesty anymore. I wanted to be a real human being again. As a result, overnight, I went from being the village hero to being reviled as a traitor. The general turns to face Kym and asks, "So are you going to mock me as a coward who ran away from the battlefield? Or blame me for being a deserter who betrayed his own patriotism?" Kym turns a gentle smile on the old man. "Neither," he says. "As a soldier, you made the wrong decision, but as a human being, you made the right one." The general strokes his white beard and says, "My habit has changed too. Nowadays, I find myself stroking my beard when I'm embarrassed." The two men look at each other and smile. "Okay, back to work, says the general, standing with a grunt. He calls out to his troops. All right, men, it's all downhill from here. Let's give it one last push and get back to the village before sunset. The troops under the general's command consist of 30 sheep, not one of whom is likely to take a person's life. Tell me, Kime, are you planning to go back into battle at some point? I don't know, he replies. I'm content with herding sheep for now, the general says. I don't have the least regret for the decision I made that day. It would make me happy to think that this could be a kind of lesson for you. With his parting remark, the general turns away from Kime and begins walking. The sheep amble along after him in newly reformed ranks. Standing at attention, the general raises his right arm and waves his troops on. Forward march! The command he had once delivered to tens of thousands of men in the battlefield now echoes pleasantly among the mountains of his native village. End. That is a pretty cute story about PTSD and I guess kind of like the soldier's life in general. Discovered treasure hunt information deep in memory. Oh, interesting. Oh, okay, so that was like a twofer. We got a dream done and some treasure information. All right, I'm out of time for this one. That was 2 dreams packed into one. So, as always, hope the guide was helpful and hope you join me for more videos.